Morning. My Twitter feed is absolutely awash with references to Marcelo Bielsa this morning. Spygate, his press conference last night, everyone wants to talk about it. It looks like players, ex-players, coaches, ex-coaches, the media, fans, everyone wants to have their say on it. And as per normal, I'm no different. I thought I'd say a few words on here rather than write something down, which I would ordinarily do. It's the first point I want to make is, and by the way, I read the full transcript over breakfast this morning of his press conference last night. The first thing I want to say is that what he talks about in there, what his staff talk about in there, is pre-game analysis of opponents that most football clubs do. The level of detail that they go into, and he refers to three axes. One, trying to guess the opponent's starting 11. Two, their tactical system. So, for example, how they press, how they play out, how they look to attack. That's the basics of their football tactics and their approach to the game. And three, their set pieces and their restarts. Those three aspects are standard. It's standard analysis of opponents that clubs in the professional and outside the professional game have been doing for years. That is not new. The volume of information that he and his team consume possibly might be a little bit more extensive than other teams do. They're probably working harder to gather more information. But as he himself says in that, or said in that conference last night, most of it is unusable. Most of it, with the benefit of hindsight afterwards, was useless. But he's just looking for that small advantage, that nugget that he can complement his pre-game preparation, his pre-game communication to the players with, that will make the difference in the next game. So this is not unique. I'm surprised, if I'm honest, at the reaction from some parts of the media. Maybe they're a bit naive and don't understand the levels of analysis that football clubs go into. But really, it's not rocket. It's really not rocket science. What Bielsa does with that information is where the magic is where he earns his coin or his corn, and where I think Bielsa separates himself, or one of the ways in which Bielsa distances himself from other coaches and demonstrates where his qualities lie. So it's not unique, but what is unique, like I say, is the way he puts it across. Is the way the way he distills information and complements what he's already doing with the players to prepare them for the next game. What is also unique is how transparent he is with the media and with external parties about his beliefs, his systems, his processes in the game. In football, as in life, if you're comfortable in your own skin, you're usually willing to be more transparent about what you do and how you do it, because you have the conviction, the belief in your processes, in what you do. And Bielsa is a master at putting across and demonstrating his own confidence in himself. And I think that's so important for a leader and a football manager to be able to do. If you compare him to other managers out there, a lot of them will be cagey. I know so many that you don't necessarily see in press conferences, but I know there are a lot of managers out there at the highest level of the game who are verging on paranoid about sharing information. And Bielsa, in my opinion, goes out there and says, this is what I'm willing to share with the world, and anyone can come and see it. Anyone. My understanding is that if a coach wants to go watch Bielsa coach, if you write a letter to Leeds, you can go watch them coach. That in itself sends out a great message that he has belief in what he's doing. He's making two psychological. There's two statements he's making, external and internal, by doing what he's doing. The external statement is, we are thoroughly prepared. We are more prepared than you are, and we go to, we outwork everyone basically. So the opponents analysis teams, the opponents players will not be ignoring this. They know, they get the messages that Bielsa is putting across, and it's going to put them on the back foot. So he says he doesn't like courting the media. And to some degree, I get it. I get it. He's not like an open access manager who's forever in the media and having some kind of celebrity status in that respect. But when it comes to what he wants to plant in the media, he uses the media well, and that's exactly what he's doing. He's sending messages out there that, in my opinion, are going to make other clubs and his opponents stand up and take notice. But more important than that is the internal message. He's saying to his players, we are prepared as a football club. I'm prepared as a manager, the staff are prepared, you as players are prepared, and no one, not your opponents, no one in that ground is going to be as prepared as you guys are when you go out there on Saturday. And it doesn't mean flogging them with information for 3 hours in a lecture theatre, because football players, that's no good for any human being, least of all football players. But Bielsa will take the best of the analysis, and he will mould it together, and he will provide it to the players. But the players themselves will see from this media furore that their gaffer is A, hugely prepared, B, hugely admired and noticed by the world. And you distill that, and you give it to the players, and you say that's just another aspect to the game that you have an advantage over your opponents on this Saturday. That's a smart move for Bielsa. That's more important, in my opinion, than the external stuff, which, all right, other people will take it. Other people will be a little bit concerned about it. But my players know that they are the best prepared team out there. So the whole thing is fantastic to watch. I don't really care. I don't see any problem with. I've been involved, and I have myself gone and watched other teams train. Make no bones about it. I've done it, and there isn't that much more you can glean from those sessions than what I've already talked about, the 3 axes, and you might be able to glean that information from watching them, or talking to other managers, or talking to other people about them. I guess when I considered it, the details that you might be able to pick up are things like the internal, the relationships between the players and the training ground, because they're the same. That's the reality. What you see on the training ground is the reality. What you see in a game when the cameras are on is the players now are more than ever aware that they're on camera. But when they're in the training ground, you get to see the reality of their systems, of their connections as individuals, and their characters. So if one shows a very high level of motivation, another shows a low level of motivation, I might be using that information and feeding that into my players individually, particularly if they're going to be likely to be a direct opponent on a Saturday. Little things like that you might well be able to glean. But bottom line is, the analysis and the detail of what Bielsa and his team are sharing with the world about what he does and how he prepares and the information he's looking for, it is not rocket science. Perhaps the volume, the obsession that he has is clear. I'm not a Bielsista. I don't really like that term, but I'm not. I bought Jed Davis's book a couple of years ago. Fantastic insight into Bielsa. I remember watching his Bilbao team absolutely annihilate Man United and give them a footballing lesson a few years ago at Old Trafford, a Sir Alex Ferguson team, I think it was. I've watched bits and pieces of Bielsa's career long before he came to Leeds, but I don't know half the information. I don't know, a small percentage of the information compared to many people who've studied him. But what he has done is he's come into English football and he's bettered a group of players. He's coached them. He's improved their individual and team performances, and that's what a true coach does. I don't think enough people do that at the top level. I think there's too much kind of focus on the money and the manager's systems, rather than actually coaching the individual players to be part of that system and to be better at what they do. And I think Bielsa is a master at that. What is going on here is fantastic to watch. It's a real spectacle for anyone who loves the game, and for those of us who are obsessed with coaching, with tactics, with management psychology. It's wonderful to watch this unfold. It'd be interesting to see if he actually wins trophies. I know this guy's going to go down in history as a huge influence on some of the biggest managers and the most successful managers in the world. But I'm sure, regardless of what he says about his ideology, he'd like to have he'd like to have promotion with Leeds. He'd like to have some silverware in the cabinet, or more silverware than he currently has. And that's the one That's the one kind of aspect that Bielsa's critics point to. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. The one takeaway I just want to finish with for coaches is really, really clear out of this. You have to outwork your opponents. You have to outwork the other people who want your job. You have to outwork whatever level you work at. If you're the water boy at a grassroots club, if you're an academy assistant analyst, if you're a first team manager in a professional game, in my opinion, it feels to me like coaching and management is the second most competitive industry after playing, labour market. There's a reason why there's so many low paid coaching jobs out there, despite the fact that it takes so much money to actually get to become qualified. And that's because there are thousands and thousands and thousands of coaches out there obsessed with the game, hundreds of thousands, millions probably globally, who are obsessed with the game, who would give anything, would make huge sacrifice to be a part of football, of the machine that is football. You have to outwork at the highest level and the lowest level and everywhere in between. You have to outwork who the opponents that you see in the opposition dugout on a Saturday. I always refer to the Cowleys, Danny and Nicky Cowley at Lincoln, mainly because they're the only people within the professional game that I've seen in intimate detail work on preparation, post-match analysis, pre-match analysis, what they do on the training field, and discuss their methods with them. And I was most importantly, I took away, when you combine a huge passion and obsession with the game with the willingness to outwork everyone, and that is what they do. It's not rocket science. They're not the best coach on the grass. They're good, but they're probably not the best. They're probably not the best tacticians in the world. They probably are better. But when you put everything together and you work your bollocks off, day in, day out, week in, week out, month in, month out, year in, year out, the sum of all the improvements you make, that results in success. And that is exactly what you need to do as a coach. And Bielsa here is demonstrating that combining that obsession and passion with a willingness to outwork the opposition is a successful methodology, and we can all learn from that. Okay, have a good day, everyone.